Hello, I'm doing another video response to Ian. Ian posed a question for those of us in the YouTube movie community, those of us who have DVD and Blu-ray collections and go to the movies. How do you decide which movies to go and see in the theater, and how do you decide which movies to buy and keep on your shelf? Good question. The easier answer would be for me to, or the easier one to address would be for me to talk about home purchases. I don't very often purchase DVDs. I have a collection, but it's quite small, around 50 movies, I want to say. And the reason why it's so small is because I have selected movies that A, I really, really like a lot, and B, I know I'm going to want to watch multiple times. Whereas many movies, even though I really like them, can't see myself actually watching them repeatedly, you know. Movies like The Avengers and The Social Network and Batman Begins. These are movies that I've watched multiple times just because I really like just looking at them and listening to them. I really like the photography and editing. I like the music. It all just works so well that it gives me pleasure to watch them over and over again, even though I know every line of dialogue and every shot. So yes, don't often make purchases, but it just so happens that yesterday I picked up a couple of new DVDs, and the reason for that is because what's about to come out in a couple weeks is Captain America Civil War, which I consider to be the best of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. I'm an avid fan of these movies, not really all that familiar with the history of the characters by the comics. I'm learning about them through these films, and Civil War is the best of the lot so far. And that's coming from a die-hard Joss Whedon fan who adores the first Avengers movie from 2012. So since I'm planning on getting that, and since I already own the Avengers from 2012, I thought I'd get a couple more Marvel movies to sort of go between the two. First we have Captain America the Winter Soldier, which of course is done by the Russo brothers, the same guys who did Civil War, and it is excellent. And I also got Avengers Age of Ultron, which, like the first Avengers movie, is directed by Joss Whedon. Now this one I don't like as much as the others. In fact, if I were to rank all the Marvel movies so far, and I have, it would be in the lower half. I just have some problems with you know, the way some of the characters are introduced or handled, or what have you. However, there's still a lot that's very entertaining about this movie. Dialogue's really great. There's much to enjoy, and I know I'm going to want to watch at least parts of this movie multiple times, which is a good reason to have a copy. I paid $10 a piece for each of these. I was hoping that maybe I could get it for as little as 8 or so. But if I wanted to find that, I'd probably have to go all the way into the city. And I thought, it's worth the extra bucks, you know, to spend on these rather than to go all the way in there. I'd save myself a bunch of time. So, I'm going to have basically these 4 Marvel movies, and I have my own little Marvel mini-marathon if I want it. They actually had a Captain America mini-marathon before Civil War came out, with the first Captain America movie, and then the other ones that I just mentioned all playing in the theater, so that might have been fun. So yeah, like I said, this one right here is one I really like. You know, when it's been on TV, I've watched it. I've watched part of it every time it's on TV, so it would be, you know, I thought it would be a good idea to have both of these. But yeah, like I said, don't buy things very often. I keep my collection small, just the ones that I really, really like a lot, and or ones that I watch multiple times. Now the theater is tougher because, you know, movies only are showing in the theater for a limited amount of time, and it becomes kind of difficult to go, gee, I've been hearing about this movie for so long, and I'm really curious about it, but I'm not really sure that it's actually going to be good, whereas there's lots of other movies that I haven't heard about, lower profile, low budget indie movies, what have you, smaller scale movies, that could be great, but the urge to see them is not nearly as strong because I haven't been thinking about them for months and months or years, as in the case of, you know, your average Marvel or Star Wars or DC movie or, you know, any big franchise like that. I did a video recently, a couple of videos on the movies that I'm looking forward to seeing this fall, and there are at least 10 that I'm absolutely definitely going to see, unless the review is terrible, or it just isn't playing here. That happens as well. Sometimes movies that I'm looking forward to don't get shown in theaters, and they just bypass the entire city altogether. There was a movie that came out a couple months ago that played in exactly one theater in the suburbs. and nowhere else in the entire city. And I did manage to see it, and I really liked it a lot, so I'm glad I did that. But it's really hard to anticipate. You know, obviously you've got to see a few bad movies to appreciate the good ones, because they can't all be winners. You know, you there's a premise that you really like, or the cast or the director, something about it is very appealing to you, but inevitably some of the movies that you pick are going to be a little bit disappointing, or just outright terrible. Now, the frequency with which I watch movies actually comes from when I go to the library, which is very close to me. They have a really big DVD selection, and, you know, I can rent 10 movies at a time and keep them for a week apiece. I have, you know, lots to get through. You know, there's so many movies that are interesting to me, and I don't have to pay for them, you know, and I can keep them for a week and watch them anytime I have a free moment. So that's very helpful. But of course, watching them on disc isn't as satisfying a lot of the time as seeing in the theater. I saw Gods of Egypt a couple of months ago, and although that movie isn't all that great, I thought it was kind of fun, and certainly I would have enjoyed seeing it in the theater because the special effects are so spectacular. At least they look spectacular on my TV. Maybe when they're blown up to, you know, huge size, they wouldn't be that great. Anyway, that's a movie that I was kind of, gee, I should have seen that in the theater. And there was also movies like Green Room and Swiss Army Man, which I saw recently. I didn't see Swiss Army Man, actually, but Green Room I recently saw on disc. And I'm like, man, I wish I'd seen this in the theater. I wish I'd taken the time to seek it out. Because, you know, there's lots that are worthwhile, but it's really hard to tell exactly, you know, whether a movie is worthwhile, but whether or not you're actually going to like it. Trying to anticipate whether you like something or not can be difficult, because there's a lot of second guessing involving there. Whereas a movie that you're seeing just for the heck of it, you might end up being more, you might enjoy more just because your expectations are so high. I don't know. It's kind of a tough decision, but I always try and see anything that I think ought to be seen on a big scale in a theater, unless I think it's just going to be, you know, something terrible, like your typical Michael Bay movie. Those I don't really go and see in the theater. Although I have seen 2 out of the 4 Transformers movies in the theater, to my regret. And there's another one coming out, and I'm probably going to skip that one. Probably. No promises. You know, it's this thing, you know, it's hard to say. On a case-by-case basis, you go, hey, this looks really appealing, or, man, that looks awful. But then again, there's this one aspect of it that I'm kind of curious about. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to decide. And I have a few theaters close to me that are decent, that I like. But again, it's just a matter of, you know, being willing not only to spend the money, but to take the time and go, gee, I could be spending my time doing other things rather than going to see this movie, which might be good, but then again, I might be bored by it, or it might be terrible. And, you know, again, a lot of second guessing there. So there's my answer. Sort of rambling and complicated, but there's my answer. That is how I decide, or not decide, to go see certain movies, and that's how I decide what to buy, if I do buy movies, which doesn't happen very often, as I said. The link to Ian's video is below, and a couple of the people have responded as well. Thanks very much for watching, and thanks, Ian, for posing the question, and I will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.